it was just some posts who were pushing towards this new technology, and many others were really skeptical about it because they don't have the capabilities. So at least I know today that there are a future for this, and there are some opportunities, and they can work on it. And what I really like is the idea of the initiatives of DNSSEC. It's not like an industry who suddenly saw a service from which it can have a certain money, direct money. It was people who believed in a better world, a better internet world. And then here we are today with it. So I really believe this initiative rather than a product, which is DNSSEC. The second question related to the cost question. Yesterday I had an interesting discussion with the UK and Czech registries, and we spoke about the difference between DNSSEC proprietary technology, which is kind of the proprietary one, and the open DNSSEC, which is that it might be a solution to make it less costly. So I don't know if the industry, where is it going in terms of technological choice to make the technology less costly for the people who wants to deploy it? Thank you.
I have just decided that I will, in the next session we talk about tools, and I had a presentation done, but I think I will speak on motivation, why I and my organization take part and what we actually do. So thank you for that introduction. We'll get back to that later.
Hola. I raised first the question about.
I know you're there.
I raised first the question. Okay. I raised first the question about what opportunities can come from DNSSEC implementation. And so at the end of this discussion, I'm coming out from the meeting thinking that DNSSEC implementation is very much useful to create a chain of trust between all the actors, customers, telco providers, service and application providers, and so on. No? But to come to what also Steve Crocker said before, no, I think it is quite necessary to plan a global, to make a global plan for DNS implementation, no? Because from nothing and everything there is lots in the middle, and I'm very happy that Andrea wrote that is a workshop also for planning, not only awareness. So we should try to take this opportunity and to understand how to go forward in this direction, how to plan something which can put all the actors on the same roadmap.
I see you, Johnny. Do you have any suggestions for such a plan? Given that we're running out of time and we have one session left on tools, having a suggestion now would be really helpful. Otherwise, I'm tempted, I'm not actually in position to do so, but I'm tempted to suggest to Andrea that he has a follow-up action item. Doug and then Jody.
So I would argue that there are a number of activities in play that are part of that roadmap. And some of those are captured in the roadmap I discussed yesterday that's out off of the DNSSEC Initiative website. We've already had discussions initially with Andrea and the center about a follow-up training activity this fall for DNSSEC operators. So I think there are a fair amount of activities not only centered around this workshop, but activities going on in other places that will actually hopefully expedite that. But I think the bigger question, which was asked earlier or stated earlier, which is what's the method for acceleration? And I think some of that will actually happen over the next several weeks.
Are all the actors present in these other places? Because even when yesterday, people we experience, countries which have experienced lots of progress in DNSS implementation, such as Czech and Sweden and so on, they put into evidence that, especially Czech, put into evidence that telco providers, service providers are not going to implement the DNSSEC. No? So I think, are we really managing a global plan with all the actors which are needed? If no, we come to the issue you were saying before.
So I should actually not speak to that, although I have some opinion, but we want to close the mic line for coffee. Yeah, you first, and then Jody as the closing remark, and Jim to capture everything. Go ahead, Andrea.
No, I just wanted to say that, I mean, after this 1ANF workshop now, DNSSEC is very close to my heart, and I commit to dedicate part of the attention of the center to this topic. So I not only confirm that we will have this training after the summer, I think that yes, training is an important step, but we need to do a lot more to involve the wider community. So I'm not sure about the users. I'm really skeptical about the role of users. I mean, I think I'm a very expert user or an expert user, and when I connect home, I don't care about security. I just plug. I remember when I got my new ADSL connection at home, my new house, I just plugged in and I pretended it worked, and I said they will take care of everything. So I think we should work a lot with those operators, telecoms, postal operators, registrars, service providers, and bring them around the table and show them that DNSSEC is not only a technical upgrade. You need to do it because now there's a more secure version of DNS. There's a new infrastructure that yes can make the name resolution more secure, but it's an enabler. And if many, if not all, the service providers will support DNSSEC, we will have great opportunities for the future. I also think, and I hope I'm not wrong, that when everybody will be on DNSSEC, there will still be huge differences between zones or domains that decide to manage security properly and other zones or top-level domains that they think security is not important. I mean, I think we will maybe start having top-level domains that they will accept any request. And as you said, DNSSEC is a technology. So you just confirm that what is in the envelope hasn't been tampered. But there's no guarantee about the real identity of the company who registered the domain. So I think the more we will see an evolution and implementation of DNSSEC, the more also stratification of security levels. So, and I look also at the .post project because I remember I was at the signature of the contract between ICANN and UPU, and I remember all the statements about this is a secure domain. We don't want, just to give domains to everybody. We don't just want to keep it for the postal community. The postal community at the end is the community of all citizens. We want to make it secure. Everybody that will have access to that top-level domain must be compliant with a policy that has security at its first place. So this is just an affirmation of commitment on this topic. We will obviously keep all the participants informed. After I think the two comments, we will move upstairs to have coffee. Thank you.
Well, this is an issue that actually is quite a multidisciplinary one, and it's one that bridges the policy space with the technical in a realm that you guys don't normally play in. So Doug Montgomery is exactly right when he says it's got to be the job of the providers to do this. I mean, from the user side, you turn the TV on, it comes on. You pick up the phone, it works. That's how they want computers to work. Complexity must be reduced. They really don't want to know about DNSSEC, but they do want to know that if they are with a certain provider, that it will help guard against identity theft, because their request is not going to be hijacked where someone's getting their information. So if this community deals with one, consumer groups and privacy groups, and explains the role of DNSSEC in stopping consumer identity theft. Then you start bridging that where they understand what they want. Remember the Dolby business model where they decided they would require their little label to be put on every device that had Dolby technology put inside, or the Intel inside insignia. If you start with a DNSSEC enabled as a marketing guide for providers that offer that, consumers will learn that I want the provider that does that. So if technical groups, for example, if Andrea organized a group in the European side with consumer protection groups and privacy groups and explained how DNSSEC could do that, that could really enable an understanding of the issue. 2, go to your governments and say, give providers a tax incentive. Give them a tax credit or a tax break for the money they spend on deployment of DNSSEC. That also will help. So there are ways that you can turn this into marketing and turn it into a consumer protection and user issue in a subtle way where they'll start driving it from market demand instead of it just being pushed out as a technical issue.
Okay, with that, my voice is loud enough. I want to give the final word to Jim to make a summary of what we discussed today. And after Jim is finished, we're off for coffee.
Okay, so I made some notes and I tried to organize everything that I think I heard. Hopefully you'll agree that I got it mostly right. I heard 4 things. I believe we had 4 sort of major topics that we talked about. We talked about what is DNSSEC. We talked about the cost of DNSSEC. We talked about using DNSSEC, and we talked about innovation. So I'm going to go back and look at each of these separately. When we talked about what is DNSSEC, under that topic we were reminding ourselves about the authentication and integrity service that really is what DNSSEC provides. So we left ourselves with an open question of what exactly does validation mean? How did the data get in there that I'm now validating? And the fact that I got out what was put in, what does that really tell me? And I think Olaf had it said it best when he offered up the phrase, the difference between a seal of integrity versus a seal of approval. So, you know, what have we got? Now that we have this great system which ensures that we know that we got what was given to us, what was intended for us to get, where do we go from there and what does that mean? We talked a lot about the cost of DNSSEC, and it was emphasized that the costs are going down now. The early adopters are the ones who have inherited a lot of the cost. I mean, that's how we've gotten to this point. So people have invested a lot. I'm going to take a little bit of editorial license and just observe that the one thing we didn't mention in that discussion was tools and the existence of those. Although we did point out that the cost is going down, as it naturally does as you begin to implement and deploy and get more involved and engage with the technology. Now it's easier for the second generation because you have the tools available to you. We'll be hearing more about that going forward. The other interesting thing to me about the cost discussion was the emphasis that users don't care. And I hadn't really thought about it in quite those terms myself personally before, but I think that's important to keep in mind. We've used the phrase that, how do we know when we're done with DNSSEC and we've achieved ultimate success? Well, it's when we stop talking about it. I think an important part of that is users don't care. Users don't want to talk about it. They shouldn't have to know about it. They shouldn't have to look at the lock icon in the bottom of their browser. It should all just work and it should be there. It's just magic to the user. On the topic of using DNSSEC, we talked about measuring success. How do we know that we're actually achieving a goal of everything? How do we know that we've gotten to a conclusion where we're not talking about it, where users don't care, and it's part of everything? And it was Steve up front here who made the observation from Farah's question about, I think there are points in time when we can see that we are actually achieving success. Can we get DNSSEC integrated into sectors of businesses? For example, financial services is always the best canonical example. Let's follow the money, right? Let's secure our money first, secure the transactions first. Let's get those businesses and those enterprises to figure out how to incorporate DNSSEC, get some real value out of it, make the electronic commerce a safer, more trusted environment. But an interesting question that comes up in the using DNSSEC topic was made by Greg over here. It's Greg, right? Yeah. About thing that we shouldn't forget is that DNSSEC works equally well for the bad guys as it does for the good guys. So we have to keep that in mind. Even though we can integrate the use of DNSSEC and we can get good value out of it, how do we know that that value really is good? And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind with any security technology, especially since I would like you to get some sleep to keep catching bad guys. In the last question about innovation, we sort of went down a number of ideas, things. We talked about DNSSEC being an enabling technology. It really is a cornerstone. It's a foundation. It's not the solution. Okay? It is the place where you start. It really is the beginning of the beginning in terms of where we can go with a safe and secure internet. We talked about secure email. DKIM is a part of that. It's a piece of providing a safer or a better environment. Perhaps it could contribute to fixing, or not fixing, it could contribute to mitigating our spam problem, making it a little easier for the filtering technologies, those of us who get 6,000 email messages and want to somehow find the 10 in there that I really care about. Maybe there's some opportunity there. We talked about reconsidering certificates, PKIs, authentication in general. Maybe with DNSSEC, we've got a whole new world vision in front of us about where to go with digital identities. We have an opportunity here with domain names and people that gets us past the problem of hundreds of root certificates in your browser and the businesses that have to deal with those, so that users just want to click OK, OK, OK in order to get their browser to go to the right site. You would like a lot of this to be more built in and automatic and less of an issue. And Bert is getting his picture taken up front here. Yeah, yes. You'll have to tell us who Bert is. I suspect many people in here don't know who Bert is. We talked about fraud and identity theft, so that's sort of a natural follow-on. If we can revisit the authentication, if DNSSEC is a reason for us to revisit authentication in certificates, then maybe we can contribute to mitigating fraud and identity theft on the internet. So that's an area for additional work. It was only briefly mentioned by Anne Marie up front here about TLS and SSL and the complement that DNSSEC provides to that. TLS SSL is what gets you the secure encrypted tunnels. You go to a website today, that's how your address bar changes colors. It's the reason why you get that lock at the bottom. It's what tells you that you've got an encrypted path, a confidential path. You know that your private information is only going where at least you think you are. And that's what DNSSEC gives you. DNSSEC tells you that you got to the right place. TLS SSL just gives you that encrypted tunnel so that you now know that your information isn't going anywhere but where you think it's going. They're a nice complement to each other, and I think there's more work to be done there in engaging more businesses to take that opportunity. That's an opportunity for differentiation and competitive advantage. That's the word I was looking for, the phrase that was used over here. And Olaf, of course, mentioned voice over IP, telephone systems. More and more you see these things going to the home. And businesses are using them especially too. There's a huge opportunity there in protecting those mappings so that you know when you dial a phone number. I mean, with landlines, you've always had a certain confidence and a fairly high confidence that if I dial a phone number, I'm actually going to get the right phone. We've had a fair amount of confidence in the phone system to date. As you put it on the internet and you start using voice over IP instead, and that technology, people don't realize that confidence is not there anymore. You're basing your phone calls on a system that just depends on cooperation, the fact that people do the right thing, which is really the internet of today. So it's important, I think, to add DNSSEC to that, add it to that technology so that we can maintain that confidence and not lose it. We don't want that accident, that great big incident to come and take away our confidence in a system. We want to continue to make it better. And then on one closing note, I think Jody said it best. I liked her final comment, and I'll use that as a final comment to the summary too. DNSSEC and where we are today and where we can go, it's a multidisciplinary, and I'll add a phrase, it's a multidimensional space in which we are entering now. I think there are a lot of places that we can go. There are policy issues to be addressed. There are ways to get, to motivate with a stick getting DNSSEC deployed. There are ways to motivate with competitive advantage and differentiated services and maintaining credibility to get DNSSEC deployed. I think there are opportunities for a lot of different kinds of players now that DNSSEC is there in order to progress this work, continue to see greater deployment, and for all of us to get more out of it and see a safer, more secure internet. So that's my summary, and I will give the mic back to Olaf.
And I will all send you away for coffee. Looking at the schedule, I think we went overtime significantly. Can I have a look at the, can you do the logistics with respect to scheduling?
Sure. Now, we were supposed to finish 15 minutes ago. Let's have coffee upstairs, 15 minutes, and then we are back here for the next session. Thank you.